Good morning, everyone. This is Attorney Nathaniel Lee. You listen to Legal Issues Today. We'd like to thank each and every one of you for tuning into our show each week. I have my superstar guest today, Attorney Milton Grimes. Attorney Grimes did the most famous case in American history, the case of Rodney King. Famous case in the sense that it was the evolution of videotaping a police officer engaged in misconduct. And since then, it changed the landscape in terms of how we collect evidence in our country. But today we got a lot of important things to discuss. Starting off, of course, we're in the midterm elections. And as always, I'm encouraging everyone to go out and vote today, tomorrow, Monday, whatever. If it's early voting allowed, me and my family, we've already voted. And democracy is on the ballot this time around. Your rights to freedom and liberties on the ballot. We had some incredible success under the current administration. Let me just rehash a few things. A couple years ago, we had so many people dying, Milton and audience, of COVID. The president of the United States came on TV and suggested that you could cure COVID with injection of bleach into your system. So we had people that run the country that was so inept in terms of managing a pandemic. So what happened? We had refrigerated trucks at all of the coroner's offices across the country because there were so many dead bodies. And the things that we never discuss is that we talk about the million or so people that they documented died of COVID, but I can assure you it's probably 3 times that amount. Why? Because all the hospital beds were filled with COVID people. And that meant that people that had heart disease and other medical conditions, they didn't have access. So this is where we were. So what did the Biden administration do? They developed a series of bills to help end this pandemic. Billions of dollars were given out, free treatment for folks, and now we don't wear masks anymore. Then we look at in every city in America, in every state, there's massive highway projects, bridges. We've seen the Infrastructure Act just taking effect. And there's a whole list of things like that. And we saw the Biden administration, Milton, generate more jobs than any time in American history, folks. That's right. In the Biden's first 18 months in office, more jobs were created in America than any time in American history. And more importantly, by July of this year, we had about less than 5 million people looking for jobs, but we had 11 million open jobs in this country. So we had twice as many jobs available to folks than we had people to fill. And that was just a fascinating thing to happen. The net result, though, unfortunately, because the government gave out so much money, Milton and audience, until in order to keep the country from going into depression and people dying, the government had to pay money to people to stay at home and not to work. And this worked, this strategy worked. But net result is that people stayed at home. In our state, for example, the unemployment benefit was almost $1,000 a week. And because people had a lot of money, it fueled inflation along with rising gas prices. And so the net result is now everybody's concerned about inflation now, but everybody forget that what do you want? You'd rather be dying with COVID, shut in, bankrupt, not have the ability to get a job because the economy went in the tank, or pay more money for goods and services. I think that is a pretty simple choice. And I think that most people ignore the fact that what would have happened but for the fact that this administration took very aggressive, proactive steps, Milton. And so, go ahead.
I was going to say, as we spoke earlier, there seems to be a sense of insecurity. Not the same one, I guess, that existed when COVID was on the rampage, but COVID is still here. But there's a general feeling, according to what I feel and what I sense and what I get from other people, that we're in an age or state of insecurity that hasn't been this heavy before, such as the loss of the ability to provide housing for your family. There's a loss of, feels like, or there's a loss of security that we may have had before, or we see this insecurity more now, Nate. I don't know what it is. I haven't had time to read the investigations or reports on this, but I was watching CNN last night, as I told you, and there was an interview of a gentleman who has a significant audience that watches or listens to his show. And he said most of the viewers or listeners, a great amount of them anyway, were concerned about this economy. And they're concerned about voting, what's happening with the voting situation. Are we going to lose our democracy because the numbers are going to be manipulated? People votes won't be counted. People will be kept from voting. Just what's happening, man, in our country. We have the election system here in LA being questioned to the degree that was the districting that was redrawn last year by the council members legal because of the disclosure of the racist ranting of 3 council members and a labor leader in a secret gathering of theirs that was recorded. They did not know it. 2 council members have resigned because of it. The president of the city council has resigned. And now the question is whether or not they have to draw the district map over again, because there was talk about keeping Latino control in the council. And maybe the drawing of the districts were influenced by that concern. The corruption that has come to light through the examination of the previous administration has infected much of our political organizations or interests, Nathaniel. So people are insecure. People don't know what's happening. That's the feeling I get.
Well, here's my concern. And for our listeners, you can call in at 833-653-3529. That's 833-653-3529. And one of the problems that I see is that we get so much misinformation through the internet, and we get so much now. Our TV stations, from time to time, I will watch Fox News, and it's not really news, it's like political commentary, and usually they take some crazy viewpoints and they expound on them, and unfortunately, people believe this rhetoric. And so that led to people listen to this right-wing type stuff. Last year, everybody forget, on January 6th, we had these mob that tried to overthrow the federal government. Now we're getting leaks, Milton. Every day there's something leak out. We see about a dozen of Trump officials that have been found guilty of various crimes. But now we see that there was concerted conspiracy by these folks to overthrow the federal government. Mm-hmm. Nothing is worse, in my mind, as a citizen of this great country, than for somebody to try to overthrow the government. Democracy, we were raised in a democratic society, and anything less, to me, is un-American. And so we saw that unfold. Now we're seeing some consequence. But the justice is going so slow, Milton. It's so slow and painful to watch. Looked like I saw about at least 3,000 people enter the Capitol, and they've only charged about 850 or 900. So that tells me about 60% or more of those folks who committed crimes that day are still free.
Yes, and just people who try to go about their lives, do the right thing and support their family, it's causing a concern. People, like I said, people are concerned about, if they lose the rent control over the housing that they are in now, where can they go and find other housing? People are concerned if they sell their homes that they're in now, can they really afford to buy another home that will give them some security and comfort, because the prices are so much different. I don't know, that's what people are talking about around me.
Well, home prices are not going down is a strange mix. Even though they increase interest substantially to reduce inflation, home prices hasn't decreased. But the second issue I want to talk to you about is that the erosion of the Fifth Amendment and the Fourth Amendment in our country. And I know you deal with this a lot, but what I want to talk about first is Garrity. Garrity versus New Jersey is an important decision, and it gives police officer very significant protection. The case of Garrity versus New Jersey was a Supreme Court case that held that police officers are not required to give statements against themselves that will incriminate them in order to keep their jobs. It gives police officers significant protection. First, the police officer cannot be compelled to testify by the threat of discipline, even though they may have committed a crime. And any statement that they use in any subsequent criminal prosecution can't be used against them. Also, the police officer cannot be terminated for refusing to waive his Fifth Amendment right to remain silent. Therefore, if an officer simply say that I'm being coerced to give the statement, he's protected. And so everything he says in giving the statement it does is protected, and he can't be prosecuted and can't be fired. On the other hand,
that information can't be used against him, but additional information, outside information, can be used to prosecute him, right?
Well, see, that's the problem. In the cases that follow, there's a bunch of cases that followed Garrity, and unlike the erosion of Fourth and Fifth Amendment right, the Garrity rule had been expanded. And it's gotten so far now, Milton, that they expanded Garrity by the use of the qualified immunity.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And let's go to the line. We have a caller here. Hey, caller, you have a question for us today? Hello?
Hello?
Yes.
Hello. How you doing,
Yes,
brother
sir.
Nate? Brother Motel here. How you doing? How you doing? Been following you on YouTube too, and brother Milton. Good to see you out in Norfolk. The attorney from Chicago is with us, but if she is, I'll say hi to her too. Couple of things, Nate. Legal issues that disturbed me in this last week. One yesterday, definitely, and I don't know if you expounded on it yet, but I know you probably don't get to it. That's the federal judge blocking the student loan debt after a previous court threw out that Republican challenge. That disturbed me there. And then the legal issues in Arizona in Florida with the backhanded, sneaky way that DeSantis had those arrested. Now, I did read this morning that a number of those, that 20 that were arrested, the judge dropped those charges against them. But is there anything on the federal level that Attorney Garland and that office can do? Because that has to be, in my opinion, I'm not attorney, I don't know how my mother and sisters are, but that's got to be some type of civil rights violation there, isn't it? This judge has quickly dropped those charges against those people. There has to be some type of intimidation. Something doesn't smell right legally in this situation here. I was going to expound on the intricacies of of black men listening to someone who doesn't read and Mr. Kanye West, but I'm not going to get on that because I think that
wait a second, we'll come back to that because I think you need to talk about Kanye West. Let me tell you what I think about this situation. First of all, I agree that the federal government should have immediately intervened, and I do not like the Merrick Garland approach. I thought that the federal government should have filed charges against the governor and those folks down in Florida who arrested those folks, and here's why. Here's what I thought was the most critical part of this. Every one of those folks who voted got a state-issued voter ID card issued to them by the state after they were restored their rights. So they got a state-issued card to vote by the state. So how in the hell could you be convicted of a crime when the state vetted you and sent you a card? It's only because they went back and enacted special legislation to try to make people convicted of certain type of crime not eligible to vote after the citizen of the state had thought and voted the law out. So I think that the federal government should have intervened because this is not really the idea that they're trying to arrest the people, the 20 people for voting. The idea is that they want to intimidate the 500,000 or so people, or the hundreds of thousands of folks in Florida who had arrests to prevent them from voting. You got to remember, in Florida, even though the Republicans been controlling it, it's been less than 100,000 votes between the candidates with a state with 22 million people. So in other words, if they knock off just 5% of those folks, they can win the election. And that's what I thought, that the Garland administration should have indicted the governor and all those folks every one of those police officers, they should have been arrested, every one of them.
It's
If
apparent
they had done that, it would have sent a clear message for them to stop this crazy stuff.
Yeah, it's apparent they don't care what people's rights are or privileges are. They just want to intimidate and scare people from voting. And it probably has some effect over some people with a criminal conviction. I'm not going to mess with that. I don't want to be the test case. I don't want to be the person who had sacrificed themselves for the benefit of the others. I'm just not going to the polls. They're going to have to do without me. So it's the same purpose that they use lynching and hanging and brutalization of Black people for after Reconstruction, to scare them out of voting. So they can go along with the judge throwing the cases out, but just think about how many people the arrest affected and kept, and it's going to affect them. Man, I don't want to go down there. I'm trying to keep this job I got to support these kids. I got to pass on voting right now until they straighten this thing out. So it probably does have a deterrent effect, which is what they were aiming at.
Well, the second is you brought up with Kanye West, or the person now known as Ye. What was your comment about that, sir?
Well, no, I wanted you to talk about the federal court of putting an injunction in on the student loan forgiveness after a other lower court had threw out the Republican challenge to that. I didn't think that was great. I didn't understand that. It's we have
well,
this
okay, let me
issue
explain how this works so you understand. The court order does not prevent people from putting in an application for reduction of debt.
Okay.
Rule number one. Rule number two, this is very important. Our federal government has three branches of government, as you know: the executive branch, legislative, and judicial branch.
Yeah.
And here's something that's very important for all people to know. The President of the United States can tell the agency of hell to tell the courts to go to hell in this case, and I'm gonna tell you why. Even if the court sanction him, the president can pardon him. So, even though it's a big grandstand of these Republican AGs that file this, I don't even think they have standing. I don't understand how in the world they could have legal standing to challenge this. And here's what I mean. The people that file a lawsuit, for example, in Indiana, they're saying that because we get reduction in debt, then the state's going to tax me on that. You know what the solution is? If you have a problem, just don't apply for the debt waiver. I'm thinking, so, these lawsuits are silly to me. Nobody complained about the billions of dollars given away for PPP money to these corporations and law firms, physicians, everybody else. They're complaining about $10,000 being given to some poor student who's struggling to pay their bills. I mean, it's insulting to me.
It's insulting because I was just at work at a particular hospital in the city a couple weeks ago, talking to a resident who's at 165,000 in debt from student loans right now. So it's not even what we originally wanted from the progressive side of things, which was 50, which would even help, residents and definitely help minority students who carry about 48 to, I think the research says between 42 and 55,000. But it's ridiculous. And then I will go on to Kanye real quick, because I think we got some black men in this community who are so anti-left. Or I had a gentleman earlier talk about, well, since Conley, when he was a Democrat, when he was left, it was fine, but now he switched sides. There is no side but the right side. The only side we're concerned with in our thought processes as logical, reasonable black men of distinction, valor, and competence is what is right, not left or right. And he has not shown any propensity through either political affiliations. I looked up his donors. He didn't donate any. Michael Jordan gave the DNC $250,000 last election. Michael Jordan gave the DNC now, people. Okay, so look up, go to the election page, and you can find out where all this money's being donated. He's not donating money to help causes for your people. So it's not about left or right. It's about what's right. And I think a lot of these brothers keep jumping on celebrities and singers and stuff like that, instead of listening to people like you and Attorney Grimes and Attorney Banks and others out here who have been on the ground for decades, who know how the system operates and how the system works, and honestly are about what's right. That is the problem I'm seeing with this guy who says he doesn't read, he doesn't study, and we're going to listen to someone with some acumen who doesn't read, because he made some money taking beats and mixing beats from other people's music because he sampled beats. Now all of a sudden he's smart. It's ridiculous, Nate. What's your take on that? Thank you.
Well, you preaching, brother. So my take is that don't buy his product. The company do business with, don't do business with him. I mean, we have to draw a line in the sand, because what I thought he's doing is blatantly racist. He talked about Jewish people, talk about black folks. The problem is that what he's doing, I felt, is just blatantly racist, whether it's black or Jewish.
Yeah, what I recently read is that he has gotten away with this of being, oh, that's just Kanye, he's just weird like that, but isn't he entertaining? But a lot of the sponsors now, I understand he's lost one of his major sponsors, and others are supposedly be pulling back from him. So maybe that's the punishment to him, that he can't get away with what he got away with when he was with that Kardashian lady. So maybe the chickens will come home to roost on him now, brother. I don't know. I'm just saying, it seemed as though like what's his name, the football player?
Herschel Walker.
Herschel Walker and others of that ilk, that they take up with anti-black causes because they get a benefit out of it. They get a personal benefit out of it. And that's the best I could come up with, because it surely is not a right thing to do, brother. Any blind man could see that they are not right in the positions they take, and it's anti for their people. But we got those people, man. We got people in Africa during the selling of slaves that captured their own people. So you got that element in everybody does.
Okay, Pierre Pullen, you got a question coming for us today, sir.
Oh, good morning, Nate and Attorney Grimes. Can you hear me?
Good morning.
Loud and clear.
Okay, I got a question for you, Nate, and I got a question for the Attorney Grimes. First, with the Attorney Grimes, has that controversy out there with the city council out in LA, is that helping the Republican against Karen Bass? That's the question I want to ask Attorney Grimes.
Is that controversy helping the Republicans against Karen Bass? I don't see how it could. It's just exposing that, and it seemed like the people are saying, and a lot of Latino people are saying, we have got to stop this racism, and we can't do it any more than the whites have done it. We're wrong, and we have a diverse society that we have to be interested in, and anyone who is not in support of that has to go. I would believe that, I don't know if it helps or hurt her, but the controversy has brought out a lot of people to speak out on what a politician should support and not support, if you understand.
Hey,
Go ahead.
Pierre,
Yeah,
let me
'cause
correct something. Hey, hold a second, Pierre. In California, their politics is a little bit different. In California mayor race, both candidates are actually Democrat. One, Rick Caruso, is a wealthy developer, but he's a big time Democrat. And what they do in California is that the top two vote getters run in the general election. So they could have 10 people. They could be 9 Democrat, 1 Republican. And then the only way you get a Republican to run, he has to be in the top 2, which won't happen in LA. So both these folks are Democrats that run for mayor in LA.
Okay. Because I was reading that he was pulling within so many points of Ms. Pass.
Yes.
Yeah, and I was concerned about that. Hey, Nate, the question I had for you was, here in Indiana, and I guess it's unique to Indiana, I had never heard, I've always heard of Miranda rights, but I never heard of Purtle rights. Can you explain what that is when it comes to search of your car in your possession and what the cops have to do? Because I never heard of it until I read this court case.
What you say? Spell that. What'd you say? Spell that out, please. Say Purgle. I didn't hear you.
Yeah, Purtle rights.
Like the
I guess
animal?
it's a case. I guess it's a case here.
Well, hey, spell it real quickly.
Here it comes. It's Purtle rights. Have you ever heard of that?
No. Is
With respect to-
PERTLE?
Yeah.
And what does it say, sir? What does it mean? Forget what the title
It
is.
has something to do with you have to be advised not along of your rights, but the police here in Indiana, they have to advise you of your rights not to have your car searched or whatever. I had never heard of that until I read this court case.
What court case are you talking about?
I tell you what, you go on with the conversation.
Well, see,
And
the Purtle rights, really, it's just Miranda rights. I think that's a new name. Basically, what it is, Miranda requires police to warn a suspect before conducting a custodial interrogation.
Right.
And so I think that all that Purtle rights is the same thing, saying that you have a right to object to searching your car. I think that's what you're talking about, right? The search and seizure rule.
Yeah,
They're just saying
so,
that you don't have to
One is a
incriminate yourself.
One is a Fifth Amendment right, one is a Fourth Amendment right. I've heard something about, you don't have to, the police telling the suspect, you don't have to let me search your car, but if you don't have anything in there, or if there's nothing criminal in there, you shouldn't have any objection to it. And they go about trying to trick the person into saying, okay, it's okay to look around or something like that. But I've never heard of it defined as the turtle right.
Well, no, what he's talking about is a case of Purtle versus State, a 1975 Indiana case. And
Okay.
it's a right that's specific to Indiana. Miranda requires police to warn a suspect before conducting a custodial interrogation. Purtle rights require similar legal warning before an individual who is in custody can consent to a search. Purtle is specific to Indiana. Most people are familiar with Miranda warning, but Purtle warnings are overlooked by both police officers, attorneys. It holds that a person who would ask to give consent to search his car or search of his person while in custody is entitled to the presence and advice of counsel prior to making the decision whether to give such consent.
Hmm.
So it just, it's similar to Miranda, but it's additional protection that most people are not familiar with. But basically, we tell everybody the same thing. And then also, we'll get a report also from the Chief Administrator of Marion County Prosecutor's Office, Chief Administrator Terrence Thorpe today. Attorney Thorpe, how you doing today, sir?
I'm good, Mr. Lee. Thank you for having me.
Real quickly, we have a lot of people today, and we're talking about parental right, but give us a quick status of what the prosecutor's office now. We've had some avalanche of crime. What are you guys doing in the Marion County Prosecutor's Office to reduce crime, and what's going on at the office?
Well, to help reduce crime, what we are doing, realizing that our office has to work on both ends. So to help reduce crime, we have our second chance initiatives, helping get people their driver's licenses back, helping to expunge certain criminal convictions off of their record so that people have a chance to get housing and to get jobs. We know that people who have stable housing and stable employment aren't likely to be in the criminal justice system. While we have these programs, our traditional duties of holding people accountable, we've never been better. Our conviction rate for homicide cases is extremely high at an all-time high. In 2019, we tried 49 murder cases to verdict with a 73% conviction rate. In 2020, in the pandemic year, we weren't able to try as many cases, but we did take 9 murder cases to trial to verdict with a 100% conviction rate. 2021,
well,
we saw
that's pretty good result.
It is, and 2021, with things getting back into swing and more cases being getting to trial, we conducted 31 murder trials with an 84% conviction rate. And right now, through the first quarter of 2022, we've taken 10 murder cases to verdict with a 90% conviction rate. So we're not slacking on our traditional role of holding people accountable while also providing opportunities for people to get and stay on the right track once they've served their time.
Well, one thing I got to give big accolades to about the Marion County Prosecutor's Office, and I really think you guys were doing one thing I thought was important. Your office dropped charges against all these African Americans who had these petty marijuana convictions, which freed up a lot of these young men from the jail and give them a second chance. So thank you very much. I think that was pretty historic, that what you guys did, because that was consequential. Since 1987, I've been fighting because we had so many of our young Black males in Marion County Jail. These petty drug offenses, it ruined their lives. And they can't get jobs and stuff, and you guys fixed that. So you've done a good job. But one of the things I was concerned about, you were talking about trials, but I don't know. I saw a person the other day, I don't want to get political here, but there's a person running for prosecutor's office that's never tried a case. The Republican challenger in Marion County and never tried a single case in court, in civil or criminal court, and came on TV and said that she has experience. I about threw up. I'm thinking, how could somebody run for an office like this, have this marriage to run, who never tried a case? It's just shopping. Your office have trial lawyers, doesn't it?
It does. And Prosecutor Mears' background speaks for itself. In the courtroom, Prosecutor Mears has done just about every job, from misdemeanors and low-level felonies to some of the most gruesome homicides that we've ever seen. He's tried well over 100 jury trials. So again, in the practical experience of what the prosecutor's office does day to day, his experience is unmatched. But Prosecutor Mears also cares about making sure that our office works on both ends of the justice system to make sure that we live in a fair and just community. And with the second chance initiatives, getting driver's licenses, sealing criminal convictions, we opened the first conviction integrity unit in the state of Indiana. We're not afraid to take a look back at some of our older cases and not necessarily presuming that anything nefarious happened. But if there are developments in evidence and other things that call into question a conviction, we need to address those things, because the ultimate goal of this office is to see that justice is done.
Now, one of the things I was watching TV, and they're confusing the office, the prosecutor's office, and police law enforcement. For example, the way the system works is that police officers are out in the field, they investigate, and they provide evidence of crimes, and then the prosecutor's office take that evidence and prosecute people. One of the things that I think most people are confused about is that if there is an increase in murders in the city, what's the role of the prosecutor's office versus the law enforcement people that are out there, the police officer, the street police officer? What's the difference?
Well, you can't deny that we work closely with all of our law enforcement partners in trying to put together the best cases to hold someone accountable and to get justice for our victims. So we work very closely, and we have a very good relationship. We have detectives who work with our prosecutors. We have prosecutors on call 24/7 to address violent crimes and to answer any other questions. And in order to have a system that works like that, you have to have people that have good working relationships. And we have those. There are no easy answers to preventing violent crime, but what we can do with our working relationships is to make sure that we hold those people accountable. And once we hold people accountable, for violent crimes or for any crime, making sure that people who want to get back on the right track are given that opportunity.
Well, thank you very much, Chief Administrator Terrence Thorpe, or the Marion County Prosecutor. Thanks for calling in today, sir. Thank you. Now,
Thank you for having me, Mr. Lee.
Back to Mr. Pullen. What's your additional question, sir?
Oh, I'm through. I just wanted to know if you had ever heard of that warning, and because most people haven't. I just learned about it last week when I was reading this case. But thank you, Nate, and thank you, Attorney Grimes.
Thank you for calling in today. Now, when he was saying that, I didn't hear what he was saying, but I looked it up while he was doing it. That was an important thing. I was glad that we got probably some of the brightest people in America that call into our show. I mean, we probably got a lot of lawyers in waiting out there because they're able to find these esoteric legal issues all over the place. I'm really happy that they keep us informed of these things, because I bet you prior to today, probably about 95% of lawyers never heard of the protocol because it's a 1975 case. So we're talking about something almost 50 years ago.
Mhm.
And one of the things that we see, though, Milton, is that we see these searches and that occur every day out there involving young men in our community. I know you had some situations out there in LA. How proactive are the police officers in terms of searching these Black males like in your community in LA?
They just walk through them. I'm dealing with a case now that brings the turtle rights and Miranda rights into issue. And I'm glad that I heard this young man speak of the turtle rights case. I'm going to see if we have such a law in California. I've been doing this 48 years and I've not heard of a specific case on that issue, but I got to review it now. I got to review it, make sure. But I see them in certain neighborhoods riding up on people and in total disregard for probable cause or reasonable suspicion, just get out of your car, okay? Or if they catch you near your car, okay, face the fence. I'm just patting you down for my, well, why are you patting me down, officer? Well, I want to talk to you. So I'm patting you down for my security, and they pat them down. Okay, put your hand behind your back. And before you know it, they're handcuffed. And then, okay, you got any drugs in your car? You got you got some marijuana in your car, don't you? Well, is marijuana legal? Oh, so you got some marijuana in your car. Well, I'm gonna search your car. No, don't search my car, officer. Shut up. And they just go through searching their car. There may be and there may not be marijuana in there, but they have started a search of the car. And they just walk through. I got that on video, on the body cams of officers. They just walk through your rights. They don't care for them. They don't adhere to them. They just do what they want to do. And that's what happens here in LA on the whole. You saying, no, you can't search my car, officer. What have I done? Just be quiet. There's no articulable facts that the officer can state as to a crime being committed or being planned or have been committed. You're Black, you're in this neighborhood, so you must be committed the crime. That's what's happening.
Well, unfortunately,
They don't do that in Indiana, I'm sure.
well, they do, but unfortunately, under the qualified immunity document, you can't even sue for that anymore. You know, in other words, because all I was got to say is that what those magical word, I did it because of officer safety or fear of my life. And they're taught that in the academy now. And so I guess now the only thing that's, officer, have I done anything to put you in fear of your life? Since I have no weapon, I have no threat to you, why are you searching me? Number two, there's nothing about me that's unsafe. And so the problem though you get into, if you get into a verbal altercation with the officer, you're gonna lose 10 out of 10 times. So now you're powerless. And so the answer to that is that we have to hold our government official accountable. If that's happening, I think that if the mayor can't get the police chief to correct it, then we need to get new leadership.
And we have to hold our judiciary into account, because so many times you see judges sit up there and go along with this, even though they know that's not the law, but the judges will deny your motion to suppress or give the officer a nod of good job and keep on going. But they know this law does not apply in Beverly Hills and your other well-to-do neighborhoods.
That's pretty sad. You know, unfortunately, we always get back to this police search and seizure issue. We've covered it probably 100 times, but we probably better talk about that just very briefly so people don't get the wrong idea. If you are stopped by a police officer, you have to obey those commands, because if you don't, then it could end very badly. Unfortunately, police officers are given a really broad range of powers. They carry a gun. They have a license to kill in certain instances. And their license to kill has some constraint versus the case of Tennessee versus Garner back in the 80s. But now, what the rulings of the Supreme Court and some of the appellate courts, our rights have been slowly eroded. First, they came after the Fourth Amendment. Then now, but now the Fifth Amendment, Milton, has become really popular now. The Fifth Amendment, I see now, the former president of the United States is now exercising the Fifth Amendment. So now maybe the Fifth Amendment is going to give us more protection. Now that the former president and all his staff and his lawyers are using it now. So maybe that may be the good thing that come out of all these investigations. The increased presence of the Fifth Amendment and the protection provided by the Fifth Amendment. So when you talk about a prototype case, nobody has used that more than the Trump administration, their officials. So that's a good aspect about that whole investigation. We see an increase in awareness of the Fifth Amendment, the right to self-incrimination, and the protection the court is afforded. All those people that testified before Congress and the court that took the Fifth Amendment, they were protected. So with all that said and done, I think that's going to be a positive for particular people that are minorities, if they take the same type approach. Milton, what do you think?
Well, I think knowledge is always important for all of us to have. And it saddens me that a lot of my people don't know all of their rights. And I understand that. And I understand why people get into the verbal dispute and verbal battle with the officers out there, Nate. When you couple the disrespect of the law and the disrespect of my humanity and the treatment of me like I'm a nothing, it raises the emotions and the feelings of, I got to do something here for myself. And a lot of us, Nate, and we can't all be as rational as the advice of, you can't confront these officers out on the street and you got to do everything that they say, because I think oftentimes a person is pushed to that point where they feel as though they're justified in reacting and responding, because so much of their dignity is being taken away from them by police officers when they confront them. It's only so much you can take.
Well, the problem we have now, like in Indiana, council, is that we have open carry now. And so I was really concerned about the passage of this law that took effect on July 1st of this year. We covered it in one of our prior shows. Now that we have open carry and legislation, how will that affect, in your mind, if you had that in your city, if the law says you can carry a gun openly, you don't need a license, wouldn't that be the type of thing that put us more at risk if we're stopped by police officers, particularly African-American males?
I don't think that's an easy question to answer, Nathaniel, because I think we should have as much of a right as the next man to carry a weapon, according to the Second Amendment and the protection of the law. I think officers have to be better trained on the respect of another person's humanity, regardless of their race and their color. I've seen cases where young men have said, "Officer, I have a gun in my car, in the glove compartment." And immediately there's a swarm of police officers. There's a treatment of this person as if they are a criminal, guns drawn, felony stop, a felony arrest or detention. And they just don't want to give us the respect of the right to have a gun. So there is some education on both sides that I guess have to be done, Nathaniel, but to just judge it by, is it going to increase the danger to a people? That's one of the problems we're going to have to deal with, and we're going to have to educate police officers to that you just can't come out, you can't come upon everybody with your gun drawn and expect that power and that threat is going to make them bow down to you. So it's complicated. I mean, you know a lot more about law enforcement than I do, but I believe that if you treat people with respect and dignity, they will treat you with respect and dignity. Now, just because that person has a gun on him, I don't want to say it's no different than the officer having a gun on him, because it is. But we got to do something with this new situation. That's all. We can't deny it or withhold it because we think, oh, now this young black man is more danger than a white man with a gun. Sorry. We got to do something with this potential issue.
Well, you know what? I agree with what you're saying, and I'm a big proponent of the Second Amendment.
Okay.
But where I make a slight departure is with this idea. When this law took effect, right before it took effect, I was a speaker at a legal seminar, and I went to a gas station, and the price of gas must have hit $5 a gallon or something. So I had sticker shock because I only fill my car with gas once a week. When I get there, the price went from like $3.90 to like $5.05 or something. I was sticker shock. But the thing that shocked me more than anything else, the guy next to me had a big gun, huge gun, on a holster. I'm thinking, why does this guy got a big gun like that? I looked to my right.
How big of a gun on a holster, Nate?
It looked like it's that big, man. It looked like it was like 18 inches with a clip on it. You know, one of those, what do you call those clips where you have about 50 bullets? A magazine clip with about 50 bullets, 50 rounds. Then another guy had a gun, and the guy behind me had a gun. At the gas station, Milton, I was the only person that pumped gas that didn't have a gun. The only person. And so my point is that, I didn't feel safe.
Right.
I'm thinking, all these guys got guns. I'm at a gas station. I'm the only one that don't have a gun. I don't know. This is my thoughts for a day.
And so does that tell you to get a gun, or does that does that say take their guns?
No, I've always had lots of weapons. I just don't think that it's a good idea to show them publicly. In other words, I think that you should have a right on the Second Amendment. And I've had a gun permit, a lifetime carry permit. And I think that that's the responsible thing to do, keep your weapon concealed.
Right.
I don't think that you should publicly display it. And
Oof.
so that's my thought. But in any event, we're at the end of our show. I appreciate your comments and our callers for calling in today. Don't forget, callers, you can reach us on YouTube with Nathaniel Lee Legal Issues of Today, and also on Facebook. And I'd like to thank my special VIP guest, Milton Grimes, for always being so informative to us. And I'd like to thank each and every one of you, our audience, for tuning in each week. Next week, we'll be broadcasting again with Legal Issues of Today. So come join us again. So thank you. May God bless and keep you. And don't forget, go out and vote. Go out and vote. Vote early. Call 10 friends. Go out and vote. Any
All right.
important words, Attorney Grimes?
Go out and vote. Please.
Thank you, everybody.